Hello, and welcome to Fundamentals of Statistical Literacy. My name is Marcus Waldman. I will be your instructor throughout this course. In this video, I want to orient you to the course, go over the syllabus, and show you the class website. So what's this course about? Well, let me explain the course goals. What I want you to be able to do by the end of the course is to fluently converse with statisticians using statistical vocabulary strategically and appropriately. So, what does this mean? It means that I don't expect you to be a statistician. I don't expect you to calculate confidence intervals, for example. What I want you to be able to do is take your work to a statistician and have an intelligent conversation with that statistician so you can achieve your study goals. In addition, I want you to be able to interpret and critique the statistical evidence from scientific literature. So, being a critical consumer of literature, know when you see strong evidence and when maybe the evidence might be lacking. And finally, I want you to be able to effectively and appropriately communicate and disseminate statistical evidence. So this is very much an applied course. It doesn't focus on rote calculations. It focuses on the meaning of statistical concepts and how they relate to your research. We have a course website. It is on Google. I will talk about that once we go over the syllabus. So, again, my name is Marcus Waldman. Let me introduce myself. I have a master's degree in statistics, and then I went on to get a doctorate from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And so my doctorate is actually in quantitative policy analysis in education. So I arrived at a biostatistics shop here at the University of Colorado Anschutz, in a little bit of an untraditional path. So how did I do that? Well, while I was working on my coursework, I started interacting with child developmentalists, pediatricians, developmental pediatricians in particular, and I started to get on these public health and medical studies, and they were relying on me heavily from my statistics background. And so um, after I graduated from my program, I realized, I really want to be more in a public health facing field. So I did my postdoc at the University of Nebraska Medical Center before ending up here at the Center for Innovative Design and Analysis at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. I'm interested to hear about yourself as well. We will do that on our first class. And in particular, what I want to know is what brought you in? What do you hope to get out of the course? And what's your background with statistics? Just a little bit of a comment about attendance. So I will take attendance each time we meet. If you want the certificate of completion, you need to attend at least 5 of the 6 classes. Now, there are no grades, so the only thing you need to do is to show up. And you will get a certificate of completion, again, if you attend at least 5 of the 6 discussion sections, which is hour 2 of the classes. So, as it says on the initial course website, and what I'll talk about a little bit later, is that the course is really divided into 2 hours. The first hour you have the option of attending, or you can watch a pre-recorded video. The second hour is a discussion section, and that I expect everyone to attend. Okay, so I was previously a high school mathematics teacher before I even went to graduate school. So that kind of what was the allure of going to a graduate school of education. Um, and I realized that there's kind of 2 ways you can approach statistics, teaching statistics. One is the traditional way, that is, you start with abstract concepts, abstract statistical concepts, and then you transition to examples that illustrate those abstract concepts. Over the years, having taught statistics at the graduate level, um, and at other levels as well, I realized that's not always the best approach for reaching the goals that I want you to reach, which is really to be able to have an intelligent conversation, to be critical consumers of statistics. What I'm really looking for is for you to develop an intuition. Um, and so the fastest way that I found to do that is actually to take a reverse approach. The reverse approach is you start with real world examples to introduce concepts, then you generalize those concepts to abstractions, abstract where you develop an abstract mental model. And I found that to be a approach that benefits most of the students that I work with. That said, some students really do prefer the traditional approach. And so I've included this enrichment text if you would like that traditional approach. If you would like to, you can buy this book. It's a good book, and I have chapters to read before each class if you want to read it. It'll give you those abstracts, not in a technical way, but just in a way that is a little bit at first devoid of examples. Um, and so it'll build your understanding of those abstract concepts, and then in class you would get to the empirical examples. So decide for yourself if you want to use that enrichment text. It's not required. There are no tests, quizzes, or grades, so you don't need to do it at all. But I did want to leave it open to students to have that opportunity. So the format of the class, so the first hour of the class is lecture based. Um, the class will be held over Zoom, so both the first hour and the second hour will be held over Zoom. Now you can attend the first hour, or you can watch it in a pre-recorded video um, before you show up to the second hour. Now it is critical that if you don't attend the first hour, that you actually do watch the first hour, because the concepts we will be discussing at the second hour will build on the concepts from the first hour. So I don't want you to come in unprepared and lost if you don't show up to the first hour. You should have received a Zoom invitation to the class. So the class from 4 to 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, you should have received a calendar invite with the Zoom link. If you haven't received that, just go ahead and email me at marcus.waldman@cuanschutz.edu. Let me talk a little bit about the schedule. So this is my first time teaching this class. As I said, I do have an education background. This class has been offered in the past. But I look at some of how it was taught in the past, and it doesn't necessarily align directly with my educational philosophy. So it is undergoing some changes in the instructional material. So I have these learning objectives, and you will see that, like for example, in week 2, that the learning objectives are grayed out. That's because I'm probably going to modify that as I develop the instructional materials. But the fundamental topics that we will discuss will be the same. You will still get the same information, it just will be communicated in a different way. So the first is, in the first week, we're going to talk about the research process, going from the population to the sample, back to the population again, as well as this idea of differentiating between the population parameters, statistics, and and the sample. In the second part, we will talk about the what random variables are and why sample statistics are random variables. Again, I don't expect you to know what this means, but it's for these two ideas really form the basis of all of statistics. It's really the high level understanding of statistical thinking. And once you have statistical thinking, then everything else just kind of follows it in a specific way. So then we're going to move on to sample statistics like proportions and relating them to population parameters using the binomial distribution, as well as we'll go into confidence intervals. The third week of the class, we will talk about hypothesis testing. The fourth week of the class, we will talk about sample size determination. If you've run a study before, you may know that you go to a statistician in order to calculate the minimum sample size that you would need. We'll talk about, what exactly are we doing with that? What information do you need to bring to a statistician in order for the statistician to be able to do that for you, and why it's important. And then we were going to talk about modeling and hypothesis testing. And so this is going to go a little bit beyond just the simple descriptive statistics that we built on from earlier classes, and so from weeks 1 through 4, as well as the problem of multiple testing. So you may have heard of the Bonferroni correction. It's something that gives researchers a little bit of angst, but we'll discuss why it's necessary and why it's important. And then the last part of the class is really multiple predictors. So the study we collect is not the sample that we collect is not collected in a way that may be ideal. We may not be able to, for example, run a randomized control trial for one reason or another. And so we would want to, for example, get evidence that adjusts for problems in the data that result from the fact that we can't randomize an intervention, for example. So that's really the bedrock of this course. Let me introduce you to the course website. So I'm going to go up here. The course website is right there. So one thing to note about the course website that I found out today is if you're signed into your Google account with your university account or with an employer account, for example, you may not be able to access it. Now, the website is publicly available, but it seems to be that there's a security precaution in place that prevents you from actually opening the website if you are logged into your university account, logged into Google under your university or employer account. If you log out of it, you should be able to access it no problem, as it is publicly available. So if you click on the link, you'll come to the course website here. Here we have announcements. The first announcement is, and I will zoom in, to please take a quick student intake form so I can learn more about your goals and background. You can do that by clicking on this Google form. The syllabus is on the home page and you can review and download it there. And then let me just show you one other thing. So if you want to watch the pre-recorded lectures, so the week 1, if you click on week 1 and go to pre-recorded lectures, you can access the pre-recorded lectures here. So this is the first part of the pre-recorded lecture, from populations to samples and back again. And then this is the second part. You can also download the slides associated with the lecture. Now, these lectures are in YouTube. Not that I'm trying to promote any content here. It's just that YouTube allows for automatic construction of closed captioning. So if you want the closed captions,
Welcome to week 1
oh,
of the
I should probably
course.
put that out. You can click on the closed caption, and it will then
Part
render
A
the closed
of this
caption. There
lecture,
you go.
we will talk about
Okay.
how
And then if you just click on week 1 here, it will give you the learning objectives. And what I find really helpful is just the vocabulary terms. So the vocabulary is really critical for this class. And the reason why it's critical is not because I'm trying to have you memorize vocabulary terms. Rather, it's indicative of a concept, right? And so if we're going to have an intuitive understanding of statistical concepts, we have to be able to put a name to those concepts, and that's what the vocabulary is doing. And so I find it helpful for students to review the vocabulary terms both before they watch the lecture series, just so they can prime it in their brain, and then after you watch the lecture, to go over it again and make sure you kind of understand intuitively what each of these vocabulary terms are. Again, my name is Marcus Waldman. If you would like to reach out to me, my email address once again, it's right here, marcus.waldman at cuanschutz.edu. You can go ahead and send me an email, and I really look forward to working with you this next 6 weeks. Thank you.